Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Caramaliu. I know that's a mouthful, so people call me Adrian. I work with the behaviors team with Vlad and all the other guys we have in there, and we provide execution abilities to the SmartThings platform. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. This is a project that is dear to me, and it's a project that resulted from the community's love for automations, and we're going to talk about the path forward for it. So some of you might have heard of WebCoRE, some might not. Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, we'll fix this. Let me get my clicker. So what is WebCoRE? Well, in short, it's really a rule engine, and it allows users to create rules that help things around them interact with actions that users have. For those of you who know the ecosystem of SmartThings, WebCoRE is in essence a collection of smart apps that a user has to install into the account. And it provides management to all sorts of complicated rules, from if this then that to extreme cases where you can pretty much combine a lot of conditions and get a lot of outputs, different outputs depending on the state of those conditions. So a rule in WebCoRE is called a piston. And that is because WebCoRE is an engine, so engine and pistons, you kind of get it. To install WebCoRE, then a user would need to go into the IDE, which Vlad showed earlier. And in that IDE, they would need to set up GitHub integration and then add a GitHub repository to that, go in and add 4 applications, then publish them, then go install the SmartThings Classic app, and then go and install the actual WebCoRE Smart app within that SmartThings app. And then they would, during the process of installation, they would decide which devices they want to work with. And at the end of that, the WebCoRE Smart app on the phone would provide them with a code that they can then use on the dashboard website to connect that installation with the browser. From there on, they're free to go in and create rules, edit, manage them, delete them, do whatever they need to do. It sounds simple, right? Not really. So then, why do you go through all this? Well, it's simple, because it gives you a lot more complex possibilities. So there's several ways to create automations today with SmartThings, and let's just take a look at all of them. On the left here, you have Smart Lighting. It's an embedded application into the SmartThings app. So it means you don't have to install anything. It is fairly simple to use. You just go and choose which devices you want to control, and you say what you want to do with those devices. You select the trigger, and that's about it. It supports local execution, which is very important, because this allows automations to run independently of the cloud, makes them a lot faster. So when you walk into a room with a motion sensor, you would expect the light to turn on right away, not 1 second later, so that helps. But on the cons side, it's fairly simple. It does not allow you to do very complicated conditions and very complicated things. So it's more along the lines of if this, then do that. In the middle there, we have custom automations. So that's the current way of creating custom automations in the SmartThings app. It allows simple rules and fairly a little more complex rules than that. And it kind of resembles the smart lighting. So you, again, use an if, a trigger that you want to perform actions on, and then you choose what actions to do. There is no else support, so you cannot do things depending on whether the condition is true or false, just the true part of it. But it uses the behaviors behind the scenes, just like smart lighting does. And it's right there in the smart app, so it's very easy to have access to and use. And on the right-hand side, you have WebCoRE, which is, once you go through the whole process of installing all those smart apps into the IDE, you eventually get there. It allows a lot more complex rules. Like Vlad showed, you can do all sorts of nested ifs, and you pretty much combine AND groups and OR groups and anything you need. but it only runs in the cloud. So unlike the other two, that one only runs in the cloud because smart apps cannot run on the hub. So that's a limitation. But on the other hand, it has a web interface. So that should come in handy. It allows you to log in onto your own browser, whichever browser you like, and you can go there and create rules without the confines of a small phone screen. It may look intimidating, but it's really just using an editor, a visual editor with dialogues to create that pseudocode you see on the screen. The rule you see here pretty much says, if I arrive home, then turn some random lights on. Otherwise, when I leave, just wait 5 minutes and turn them back off. So it turns the lights off 5 minutes after I have left home. So let me give you some quick facts about WebCoRE. There was a previous version of it called Core, and that one took about 6 months to build, and it was only using the phone interface, just like any other smart app does. Then we came about with WebCoRE, which is the web version of Core. And in case you're asking what Core stands for, it's the community's own rule engine. It's really the result of the whole community of SmartThings, and they helped a lot. And this is the work of many, many people who spend days and nights providing feedback and helping others. I could mention Jan and Eric helping support this application, maintaining it. And there's also a lot of people on the forums who help others, like Einar, Robin, Ray, Ron, Jason, Bobby. I can go on forever. There's a huge list. The SmartThings community helped this, and they're maintaining. And this product is obviously open source because everybody helps contribute to it, and you can find it in GitHub. There's a community forum at community.webcore.co. There's a wiki page that can help you install it if you need, at wiki.webcore.co. And there's a Facebook group as well, WebCoRE Official. For a little stats, there are currently over 20,000 active users using this, and they have over 100,000 active pistons. And those active pistons execute more than 1 million times every hour. That's a lot. And here are the benefits that WebCoRE has over all the other apps. It gives the user the ability to use the full potential of the platform by creating statements and conditions in ways that were not possible through the SmartThings app. It allows the user to build complex rules with ease using a visual editor. It allows the user to share rules with the community, and I'll show you how that works. It's by using a shortcode that you can just pass on to the next user, and they can just import that piston. It has support for variable and expressions, so you can do all sorts of complex things like counters and execute actions on a nth iteration if you want to, or you can send notifications where you can dynamically build the string, the text you're sending. So let's look a little bit at the basics of WebCoRE. The pistons are pretty much the building blocks in WebCoRE. They represent a standalone rule that listens to devices and executes actions based on a script. The piston is really a collection of nested statements that allows the user to build a complex rule just as complex as they need. There are if statements to allow conditional execution. There are timers to allow you to execute things at certain times of day or on an interval. There's even a switch, a while, and a for loop. And it's just like a real programming language that it is really not. Users have been very, very creative with their pistons, and we kind of tried to figure out the main categories in which these pistons could fall. A lot of them use them for controlling lights. Some use them for reporting purposes, like figuring out which battery-operated devices need replacement, or arming the alarm system when they leave and disarming it when they come home. And I mean, I've seen things. I've seen many pistons that do many different weird things. So imagination is really the limit here. And I'll show you a few examples. So this would control the lights. What it does is, on a motion in the living room, it turns on the lights in the living room and sets them to 100%. And then if motion goes away, it will wait for 30 seconds and dim the lights to 25% to give you a visual warning that the lights are about to go out. And then wait another 10 seconds and turn them off. Now, within those 30 seconds, if you move, the lights will continue to stay on and the cycle will be interrupted and it will be repeated whenever you stop moving again. The next one is a pesky little notification system that will send you a message that your door on your fridge is open. So how it works is it puts a timer whenever the contact door on the fridge opens. And after 45 seconds, it checks that door again. And if it is open, it will send you a notification saying the kitchen refrigerator door is open. Please close it. And then it waits another 60 seconds. And it will repeat as long as the door is open. So it will send you that notification every 1 minute until you close the door. This one arms the alarm, and I have a fairly complex piston in here. What this does is when Adrian, Daniel, or Denise come home, like their presence changes to present. So when any one of us comes home, Piston will send a notification where it uses this variable, current event device, which represents the device that triggered this execution. So that would be either Adrian, Daniel, or Denise. That means the text in the actual notification will be replaced with the name of that device. So it will say, Adrian arrived home. That's what you actually get in your message. Then it checks to see if the SHM status is armed, stay or away. And if it is, it then disarms it. And it sends you another notification saying, I disarmed the alarm. Now, if any one of us leaves, therefore their presence changes to not present, then it will send you a notification saying Adrian left home. And then if all of those devices' presence is not present, it will arm the alarm and send you a notification for that. And this is the battery reporting I was telling you about. There's a variable containing a list of many devices, pretty much all the devices in the house that are battery operated. And the Piston runs every day at 9 a.m., but only Monday through Saturday, so excluding Sundays, because we sleep in on Sundays. And at 9 a.m. every day, it checks to find out any devices that have battery levels below 25%, and makes a list of those, which gets stored into a different variable called low battery devices. And then this will only return true if there's any device below 25%, and the variable low battery devices will have the list of all the matching devices. So if this is true, if there's any battery less than 25%, it builds a string in here using expressions and functions. You can see a function here called count. So count of low battery devices will give you the number of devices having the battery less than 25%. And it continues to build the script. This is me having OCD issues. Count of low batteries will add an S if there's more than one device, because we like grammar. So it will say 2 devices or 1 device. With critical battery levels, please recharge, and then gives you a list of those devices. It then goes ahead to set the state of this piston to another string, which you can see here. So in the dashboard, I can go to my dashboard and see which batteries need replaced, which is pretty cool. You can also see, so this is a snapshot of a real live piston. And yes, I have 14 devices that need replaced. I wasn't home, okay? There's a code here that we talked earlier about. That's the code that you can use to go home and import this piston into your WebCoRE installation. And you will be asked to just provide devices. And this will do the same work for you as it does for me. So it's pretty simple. So let me show you how it actually works. This is going to be fun. Okay. So I'm going to go to the IDE just to show you those smart apps. We're going to have to log in with Vlad's account. Don't tell him I know his password. He doesn't know. I'm using his account because we need to share the letters. So you will see here, there's some settings where you can add repos for the GitHub repositories. So you can add one there, and that's how you gain access to installing WebCoRE. And then you go to update from repo, and you choose the repo. And normally you will see all those 4 apps in here. I already installed them, so that's why they're not there. And they end up listed in here. So that's how you gain access to installing WebCoRE. And once we've gone through all this process, I'm not going to show the whole process because it's we're restricted on time, but I will show you how to get to the dashboard. That will ask for a code, which I do have here in the application. So I just have to open the WebCoRE app inside the SmartThings app and go to an option called Register a Browser. That's going to give me a code that I just enter there and enter a password. And boom, we're in. So this is the dashboard. And we're going to go ahead and create one piston that's going to mess with these lights a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and create a blank piston. Let's just call it, we'll leave that name. I like it. We're going to add the first statement, and that's an if. I have a contact sensor here. I'm going to use it as my trigger. So I'll add an if, and within that if block, I need to have a condition. So that condition is going to be if the multipurpose sensor contact, I chose, this is a list of attributes available to me from that device. So I'm going to go with contact. And I can say is, there's a lot of conditions here that you can choose. I'm going to go with is open. So technically I'm saying if the contact sensor is open, in the then block, I'm going to make these lights go into a random color. Let's do that. So I've selected all the letters, all the lights that I need to control. And then I will say set color. And in the set color, I have a random option. And I click add, and this is my piston. I can go ahead and save it now. And once I saved it, you can see it here. We have some logs as well. Let's see when that thing executes. So now when I open this, the lights should change color to something random. Did they? Cute. So let's do it again. Do I have a rule saying, yeah, I have a rule. Let me delete that rule. There's a rule conflicting with this that is turning them blue whenever I close the contact. Anyway, it kind of shows. All right, each letter will get its own random color. And then when I close it, something else is telling them to go blue. I'm not controlling this. I'm going to show you some, so I have more complex examples, but it's going to take us a long time to keep writing them. But so I saved a few. I need to go ahead and delete this so that we don't get a conflict from it. I have a piston here that's going to pretty much turn every letter on, each letter on, as I change the contact. So as I open it and close it, each letter will turn on in a sequence. And I think I do need to close. We may have a conflict here with the other rule that turns them. So let's see. Turn all the lights off. They're off, right? So when I open this, the first letter should turn on. Yeah, and I have something. I'm sorry, bear with me. I think I know who does that. Oh, you deleted it? Okay, thank you. Let's see, turn the lights off. And now this should turn on just the S. When I close it, the M should turn on. I'm sorry, the A. And then the next letter, and the next letter, and the next letter, and the next one. I'm having fun. And the next one. And now they should all turn blue. It worked. So, thank you. So the rule here pretty much says, if the G is on, then it means the last letter is on. Let's make them all blue. Let me show you there. So if the G letter is on, then just all the letters, make them all blue. If not, then check the state of the N letter. And if that is on, it means everything before it is on, so let's turn G on. And then if G is not on, if N is not on, let's check on U. And if U is on, then we'll turn the N on, and so on. So it's like a cycle that just checks every single one of the letters and turns on the next one or goes to the previous one. So that's how that works. I'm going to pause this because we don't want any conflicts. I have another one here that uses a little more complicated things, like a switch statement. So what this does is it uses an expression to calculate a random number, times it 6. So random is really between a float number between 0 and 1, multiplied by 6, and then rounds it up. So I'm going to get a number between 0 and 6. And then it matches it with cases. So case 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's a 6, 1, 2. And each one will just randomly change the color on one of these letters. So in essence, only one random letter will turn to a random color. Let's see it in action. Okay. Random. Oh, there you go. It's random. It's really random. It's really, really random. So we can just keep doing this. Right? And there's a log here. I think I did not enable it. But also, I can output, oh, maybe I'm not outputting any logs. I can output logs and give some information about, during building of this piston, I can test things. So I have a statement. No, I do not have any logs in there. I can log the value of that random number to see how it's going. Let's pause this one, move on to a next example. Oh, we've done this. I think we're done with, oh, I want to show you one thing that is, remember I told you that WebCoRE is a smart app and runs in the cloud. Here's what happens and why we need something better than this. I'm going to go and create a piston. So I'm going to say if the multipurpose sensor contact changes, so either open or close, I'm going to set all the lights to, say, make them colored, I don't know, coral. And we save this. And now when I open this, they should all turn to the same color, but you notice something? That's what we call popcorning. So those lights don't all turn colors at the same time. And that's because the smart app is not able to control multiple devices at the same time. So it sends a command to each device, and then to the next device, and to the next device. So that gives us this popcorning effect. I'm going to come back to this when I show you the Rules API. Let's just go there. So we've built this. I'm sorry, I have a lot of echo. So much better, thank you. So we've built this Rules API, and we're trying to move WebCoRE from being a smart app to using this Rules API we're building. So in essence, we're kind of looking at WebCoRE becoming a user interface for our Rules API, a user interface that the community can develop and they can have fun with. Let me show you how that works. So we have a website that is running the Rules API version of WebCoRE. What you've seen so far was the actual smart app version. So I'm going to go to sdc.webcore.co. And this is the difference between the Rules API version and the smart app. Smart app, I had to go and install things. I had to know GitHub. I had to get a code. I had to put it in there, enter a password. With this, all I need to do is just sign in with my Samsung account, or Vlad's. Let me use this. And that's it. I logged into WebCoRE. I need to give access to the location that I want to work with and give all the authorization. And I'm in. Let's build the same exact piston in this version of WebCoRE. So I'm going to create a blank piston. And you will notice on the right-hand side, there's a JSON object. That is going to give you the actual live view of the JSON for the Rules API as I build. So we're going to add an if condition where the motion sensor contact is on, open. Boom, you see the JSON on the right-hand side. So, and then on the then, I'm going to go and add a command and select all the lights that I have. And then I'm going to set color to, let's make it green-yellow. Add. I'm going to go ahead and save this. We'll get back to the JSON. So now when I do this, the lights are going to turn to a green color. But you noticed how more or less, oh, wait, I left the WebCoRE piston on. Sorry. That's why we need to delete. We have a conflict, so we gotta delete this one. Okay, So when I open this, they will all turn to green, but roughly at the same time. So popcorning is a lot less evident, and I'm not running local. This is all cloud. So this device is all run in the cloud. We talk to Nanoleaf, they talk to the devices. So if this were connected through Zigbee local, you would probably get just instantaneous, all of them running at the same time. So that's a good benefit of the Rules API. It runs internally into SmartThings. We have access to APIs that smart apps don't normally have access to. So we are able to do things that smart apps cannot possibly do. So let's go back to that JSON. I was telling you, I have a live view of what we're building on the JSON that we are actually sending to the Rules API. So you can see how pretty similar they are. There's an if block that has an equals that contains the device. This is the device ID of the multipurpose sensor. Obviously, this being a UI will give you the names of it, not IDs. And we're talking about a contact sensor capability with a contact attribute, which is right here, contact. And you have equals to the string open, so is open. In WebCoRE language, is means equals. So you then have the then list of actions that contains a command that is of type command, so that controls the device pretty much. The commands it sends, because you can send multiple commands in a single command action. This one only sends one single command. It sets a color to whatever that green is, and it uses the set color command, right? Which is what you see here, set color. And then the list of devices, which are listed here in the with block. So it's, you notice how WebCoRE is very, very similar to the Rules API, and that's what will allow us to move WebCoRE over. So we can have WebCoRE running natively on the Smart Apps platform and use all the benefits that the SmartThings platform have. I'm sorry, I said Smart Apps, right? So that's about it. Let me move back on to. So this is a list of a comparison between the Smart App version and using the Rules API. WebCoRE is currently running as a collection of Smart Apps. So it uses the SmartThings Groovy platform. With a Rules API, it will simply use the OAuth in API to gain access to the location and pretty much get a token that it can then use to execute, create, write, delete rules. Currently, WebCoRE executes Pistons by relying on SmartThings to start and run a Groovy application that is very big. You've seen the applications in the IDE. That one in particular that executes the Piston is about 8,000 lines of code. On the Rules API side, we'll be using a microservice architecture to just get the JSON and execute it. And that means there's no large app to start, and the service is always on. So we get much faster execution just by using a different architecture. WebCoRE currently runs in the cloud only. So as I said before, smart apps, Groovy smart apps cannot execute on the hub, so we always rely on the cloud. With Rules API, we've written the code in a language that is very light, very fast, and can run both in the cloud and on the hub. So the hub will be running your code directly. But that's going to happen in the future. We're not there yet, but soon. And also, the Rules API is more stable and reliable and uses a lot less resources to achieve the same. And I think you've seen the popcorning. It's much faster. So Rules API today and where we're going. The Rules API works closely with other APIs in SmartThings to provide access to a lot of possibilities that were not there using the smart apps. Like parallel execution of device commands was not possible before. Now we can do that. Rules API is public, and anyone can create and manage their own rules by using a path, like Vlad showed that before in the developer portal, you can go and create your own personal access token, and then you can just use Postman or any other utility like that to create rules manually. The Rules API grammar is somewhat human readable, so you can pretty much write your own rules in a text editor if you want, and then just send them over to the SmartThings API. Or you can build a user interface if you want. You can write it and then just use it. Or you can use one created by others, like the WebCoRE community. We also encouraging community to help us move more of what WebCoRE can currently do today to what it can do with the Rules API. So we're taking feedback, and we're hoping to get as far as possible with it. We have taken the first steps to demonstrate WebCoRE. As you've seen, that minimalistic version of WebCoRE is running on Rules API, and it does very well. And we want them to help us by contributing to that. It's going to be an open source, so we're releasing the WebCoRE modifications we've made, and people can pick it up and continue with it and getting to wherever they need to get. Rules API is also a living thing, so we're working hard to add more features to that API, such as local execution, which is coming soon. We are planning on variables, on expressions, because they're a very powerful feature that help you do a lot more than just static objects and texts. And we're hoping to have the ability to also share rules between users. That's about it for today, and I thank you so much for coming here. I want to thank my team for all the support we've had and all the work we've done. I'm going to mention Alex, I'm going to mention Drew, Travis, and Steve, Vlad, who's here. Our QA testers, Fong and Tanusri, thank them very much because they've been wonderful. And our Korea team, Kisu, DJ, and JB, thank you very much. Thank you again for being here, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Hello, 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 hello. So there was a lot of conflict between the rules. On the app, is there a GUI representation of the rules you create through WebCoRE?
So I've been using two versions of WebCoRE, one that is a smart app and one that is running on Rules API. So they're completely different things, and they don't see the rules created by each other. But in the app, if you go to the device itself, you will see in the history that something executed it, and it gives you the name of which rule executed it. But yes, there is conflict because I'm using two different platforms at the same time, sharing the same devices. So that required me to just delete rules from one to allow me to. Essentially, it's the same trigger I use, the same contact. Go ahead, please.
So to that end, what security capabilities are either built in or do you plan to guide into the rule sets to help alleviate benign and not so benign problems like that?
What security measures we want to implement to prevent such conflicts?
Yeah, because that could be accidental or that could be intentional.
Well, this happened because I have access to that account, and I'm controlling both of them. So
what security mechanisms are built into WebCoRE and are being transposed into the Rules API?
I'm really not sure I understand the question, but so by security you mean intrusion from somebody else?
Yeah, making sure that the program is only accessed by and behaves in the manner intended.
Okay, so with the Rules API, we only work with a token, with an access token. So you have to use OAuth to authenticate and authorize the application, which is WebCoRE, to execute, create, and delete rules into the Rules API. That token expires, I think it's 15 minutes or so, or an hour, and then you have a refresh token that you can use to extend that time. We're really using OAuth to do the authentication and authorization, so that's pretty much how you would need to have the Samsung account. You need to have access to the Samsung account to do this. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I want to understand the relationship
Okay, so the relationship between WebCoRE and the Rules API. WebCoRE is an existing application that was, I think, started 2.5 years, three years ago. And it's being used actively by users. Rules API is something that we're writing because we want to give users better access to devices and writing automations. Smart apps are some things, the Groovy smart apps are things that are going to go away in the future because they're costly, they're sluggish, and we have better ways. So smart.
So if I can stop you there. So
Go ahead.
WebCoRE appeared 2.5 years ago.
3 years ago, yes.
So fairly old.
Yeah,
Being used, from what I understand, the integration with SmartThings to the old API.
correct.
And you're coming up with something that is integrated at a higher level with the new SmartThings
Correct.
API. So why the constant mention to WebCoRE?
Because
Seems that you are writing an WebCoRE inspired SmartThings API-based rules engine. What is the dependency? What is the constant mention of WebCoRe?
okay, because Samsung and SmartThings appreciate the users, and they're using this, and there's a lot of usage out of WebCoRe. They're one of the the community of WebCoRe is a very important one, and we're trying to make sure that there's a path forward for these people who automate their homes using WebCoRe.
So what does that path forward do?
The path forward is the WebCoRe will become a UI for the Rules API. So that dependency you're talking about is we're trying to make sure there is a path forward. There is a way for WebCoRe to become a UI. So it'll look the same, but internally it will not have to manage and store its own JSON and run it on its own smart app. It will just manage rules in the Rules API.
Okay,
Yeah? Okay.
so what happens if the WebCoRE community decides not to integrate it?
Then there will be no WebCoRe.
I mean, I understand that there can be a WebCoRe provided that SmartThings ecosystem only IoT ecosystem.
Correct.
It seems to me like you are offering them as a SmartThings a transition
Exactly.
to an open source community, but it's kind of like take it or leave it. Your API is going to go away, so everything that you work for, I soon stop working. You have this chance of integrating without using Rules API, which is something that we have created based on your. If you don't take this one, then your community and your app and everything.
Well, I'm pretty sure the community will get on board and help transition because they need it, because they want it, because they're talking about it.
Because they have only one option. That's the argument.
So
you also worked with that open source community to actually update WebCoRe, right?
correct. So I've worked with them. I developed WebCoRe
So how much of
initially.
how much of the software development effort behind WebCoRe is fostered by SmartThings?
There has been no efforts from SmartThings to develop WebCoRe.
You're just saying
No, we took some steps to showcase it, like a proof of concept, that WebCoRe could run on the Rules API. So we're offering Rules API. Anybody can write a new UI if they want to. So if WebCoRe doesn't continue, somebody else can come and fill in the gap. Right? There is a need. There's a market for that. It's an open source project. So people help. There's contributors who go in there and write code. And they will write code in the future as well. We're just giving them a way to transition forward because we cannot keep going with the SmartThings Groovy APIs.
So if we, I work for Samsung, I do recognize the connection between corporations and the open source community at large. I do appreciate in a certain way what you are providing as free software developer too, so I do understand the both sides. But I want to understand them professionally if I need to pay attention to it. What you're saying, you don't need to pay attention. If I want to develop a solution right now that involves rules, I will have to be working with the rules API.
Correct. So you have that option.
Or is this a reason to
No, so not everybody is a software developer. Not all the users know how to write things, and not all the users will know how to connect to the Rules API. So WebCoRE is just the UI that gives them a much easier access to the Rules API.
But it will be kind of a front end to a,
It's exactly what it's going to be, just the UI, just the front end to Rules API.
so for a professional developer point of view, I need to focus on the rules.
Correct. As a developer, you want to look at Rules API, yes.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
want to emphasize that messaging confusion, like I just posted this on Facebook, and somebody wrote that just Reddit is now WebCoRE is a part of the official part of SmartThings.
No, it is
I
not.
know, I'm saying somebody else.
Okay.
posted that. So there's a bit of a communication issue I just want you to be aware of.
Okay, thank you.
One way that you might be able to dilute that or to focus that message is, do you think that smart lighting may be rewritten to use the Rules API?
That's the plan, yes. So we're planning on replacing the old behaviors and giving them access to all these new things. So the custom automations, the smart lighting, and all the other apps that we have in the SmartThings app will be using the Rules API.
And because I liked your popcorn example, because I think even smart lighting isn't simultaneous.
Smart lighting actually uses local execution. So if you do have, if your devices are all local, it will run them. If one is cloud,
Really simultaneous, or is it still sequence?
we're executing them simultaneously. So we're sending the command simultaneously. There's no guarantee. I mean, in real life, in Zigbee, you can only turn on two lights together if you group them and you send a command to a group. If you don't group them, and we have efforts working in that direction as well. If you don't group them, then as far as it goes with the technical data, you will be sending two messages, one to one, one to the other one. So technically, they're not simultaneous.
The Philips Hue app, they're concurrent.
Yes, because it groups them. It uses ZLL and groups them.
So that's what we're saying. Once you have that API infrastructure in place, you could enhance it to support
Correct.
safety level grouping. You've got a much more lower level engine to build upon
Correct.
than whatever has been kind of very monolithic firmware in the current design. Right?
Yes.
And this is being pushed to the hubs when?
I don't know. I mean, we have a path forward. We're not really, I mean, I cannot commit to a date.
And as you said, it's going to be incrementally getting more powerful.
Correct.
WebCoRE is almost infinite in the possibilities of the things you can do, but not everything you can do in WebCoRE can be expressed in the current rules.
Right now, as it stands, no. And in the future, there's a chance that some things are going to be missing. So,
Variables, perhaps.
no, variables are going to be there. I'm talking about custom integrations that WebCoRE developed through time with other things. I could give you an example, emails. I'm not sure if emails are going to make it here. So with WebCoRE, you can send an email. We may do it. I don't know. It's really not my decision. Thank you very much, guys. Time's up. Thank you, and have a great day.